Well, we rate Tom really highly. I'm sure the rest of the competition does as well. He's just a superb player and he gives them a lot of drive and a lot of composure. He sets up so well behind the ball. He's so hard to beat.
There's something not quite right down in Sleepy Hollow. Something's a bit off, slightly out of tune. I try to watch as many coaching press conferences as I can. Now, most could be pretty mundane, particularly with the softballs being gently lobbed their way by AFL journalists. But every now and then, something gets said that makes my ears prick up. Now, in its original format, and because I value context, this video had a number of unedited clips from Geelong coach Chris Scott from his post-match press conferences. Unfortunately, in addition to the ridiculous control of game footage, which you can find out more about here, the AFL have also put copyright protection on certain press conferences. So instead of direct quotes, you're just going to have to put up with me paraphrasing. So the comment from Scott that drew my attention was after the Cats lost to the Swans a few weeks back. When asked about Grundy's dominance around the ball, Scott mentioned that he didn't see it that way and that he thought Stanley was the dominant player, particularly early. Now, I would wager that the majority of us that witnessed the game did not view Stanley's performance as dominant. The stats back this up, as did the coaches' votes, which included Grundy. Now, I find Chris Scott to be one of the more refreshing and forthright coaches across the AFL landscape. And really, who am I to be questioning his viewpoint of the game? The bloke would have forgotten more about the sport than I will ever know. Still, there was something so odd about the comment, so into the old memory box it went. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and after the Blues had given them a hiding, Scott went on to explain that the Cats' troubles were linked to midfield performance, that most sides had the centre square stacked with superstars, and that Geelong had essentially had to play the majority of the year without their two best inside mids of the past decade in Danger and Guthrie. He explained that this was okay against developing midfields, but when you faced the likes of Walsh and Cripps, it was a different story. But didn't they already beat the Blues just weeks earlier? Had the composition of their midfield and the numbers produced changed that significantly within that span? Now, I tracked this sort of data and once again found myself disagreeing with what this dual premiership coach was saying. So in one way, he is right. The Cats are most definitely not a strong side around the ball. They rank 14th for contested possession differential at negative 4.07 per game. But the reality is that when Geelong were 7-0, they ranked 16th in this stat. There has actually been an improvement in this area over the last 7 weeks. Ground ball gets tell a similar story. Clearance-wise, if we look back to when they were 7-0, they ranked 17th for clearance differential. At 8-6, those numbers have hardly fluctuated at all. Inside 50s once again illustrates that there has not been any semblance of a significant drop-off in this component of the game plan from when they were on top of the ladder to their current position of 7th. These numbers conflict with what Chris Scott was saying, and whilst I'm sure that the club have access to more in-depth analysis tools, and they would have data that measures the quality of these clearance and inside 50s, but from a raw numbers standpoint, despite going 1-6 in this block of footy, the Cats had shown improvement in some areas and no regression in others. And scoring-wise, they remain one of only 5 teams that average in excess of 90 points per game. So was Scott merely deflecting attention away from where the real troubles lie? Because defensively, the Cats are hemorrhaging. At 7-0, Geelong were kicking a goal 26% of the time that they entered into forward 50. Defensively, they were conceding a goal on just 19% of opposition entries. The difference between the two measures of 7.7 was as good as it gets. To put it into perspective, the Swans, as we all know, are having an historic year. They lead the league in this measure with 7.56. When the Cats won the flag in 2022, they also led the comp in this measure, but the number was 3.17. That's how dominant their first 7 weeks were. In the subsequent 7 weeks, that number has gone from 7.7 to 1.06, ranked 8th in the comp. and just look at that defensive efficiency. The Cats now cough up a goal on almost a quarter of all opposition entries. Just 8 weeks ago, the Cats had conceded the 4th least points per game at just 73.14. They now rank 15th, allowing 89 points per game. A monumental shift in such a minute amount of time. Now the coach would have you believe that it all comes down to the strength of schedule, and that the lads from Kardinia Park are just navigating a difficult part of the draw, that they've faced numerous, in his words, contenders over the past 7 weeks. But it runs a bit deeper than that. 4 of the 6 losses have come against sides who are also barely hanging on and are having just as many issues as Geelong. That 2 of those losses have also come at home is cause for even greater concern. Kardinia Park was once a graveyard for travelling teams. The Cats are now 4-4 across their past 8 games at the stadium. Teams are picking them apart with ease. Hell, the Suns average 85 points per game and put 164 on them. Now you have to go back to round 14 of last season to find a game where Geelong have had 40 plus points kicked on them in a quarter. The Power put 50 on them in the first quarter 6 weeks ago. A week later, the Suns kicked 44 in the second, 50 in the third, and 43 in the fourth quarter. GWS kicked 41 in the second quarter a month ago. The Swannies kicked 45 in the last quarter at the SCG, whilst the Blues put 55 on them in a final quarter demolition last weekend. This has become a pattern, not an anomaly. 7 quarters of 40 plus conceded in just 6 games of football. The 164 scored against them by the Suns was the most ever conceded by a Chris Scott coach team. The 138 Carlton just scored was the 3rd highest. Something is desperately wrong. Good sides just don't regularly cough up 100 points. The Cats did it just 4 times in 4 seasons between 2019 and 2022. It's happened 5 times in the last 8 games. If they're not already, alarm bells should be ringing. So just what exactly is happening behind the ball? Well, to put it bluntly, teams have come for the head of the snake. The tactic of putting time into Tom Stewart is nothing new, but there is a difference between close checking and a hard tag. And whichever way you choose to look at it, Stewart is either currently not able to cope with the tag or is not coping as well as he has done in the past. Now in the round 2 clash between the Cats and the Crows, Adelaide employed Luke Pedlar to nullify Stewart's impact. Stewart took 10 intercept marks, had 28 disposals and collected 10 coaches' votes, which prompted this quote from Matthew Nix. Most people look and go, why don't you just put someone on him? Some players have a level of footy that even with that attention are able to impact the game. He's one of those. I'm going to show you a piece of footage which illustrates the difference between merely playing on Tom Stewart as opposed to a hard tag. Look what unfolds as the long ball is kicked into the Crows' forward 50. Pedlar, a natural ball winner, can't help but be sucked into the contest. Stewart makes a beeline to the most dangerous part of the ground, the goal line. By the time Pedlar remembers the role he is supposed to be playing, it is too late. He turns to look for Stewart, but has no idea where he is. The play unfolds exactly as Stewart envisioned, and he takes an uncontested mark in the goal square before placing an exquisite kick in front of his teammate. From defense to attack in one perfect read of the play. And it happened over and over again. Now again, I can't show you footage from last week's match due to copyright, so you're just going to have to trust me and bear with the graphics. In the opening moments of the game, there is a similar piece of play. A contest forms inside the Blues forward 50, and Williams blindly snaps towards goal. Alex Chincotta is right there, opposed to Stewart, and spoils the mark. There is no getting sucked into the contest. His sole focus is to engage Stewart and prevent him from intercepting. Cincotta's defensive actions lead to repeat stoppages, which enable Carlton to kick the first goal of the match. Similar situation to the Pedler clip with a radically different outcome. And this is the level of detail and discipline you have to play with when opposed to Tom Stewart. A momentary lapse in concentration can be the difference between your team kicking a goal or having one scored on you. That's how good he is. Later in the quarter, Cincotta is stuck on the bench, and after playing fast and direct all quarter, the Blues are stuck at half back. They do not want to kick long down the line. The reason? Momentarily freed from his constraints, Stewart has zoned off and is prowling and stalking like a hungry panther. It forces Carlton into a risky kick into the corridor, which gets turned over and an immediate set shot at goal results. The Tom Stewart effect in all its glory. Now the Cats missed the shot, and Cincotta is able to get back on the ground. The resultant kick-in saw the Blues get caught at half-back on the opposite side of the ground. Newman doesn't hesitate and pulls the trigger on a 50-metre bomb to Cincotta versus Stewart, 1-on-1. A 25-gamer against a 5-time All-Australian. Cincotta brings the ball to ground, and the Carlton players swarm the ball forward for yet another scoring opportunity. This is the difference between playing in the vicinity of Tom Stewart and a hard tag. It disrupts the entire Geelong defensive system. Tom Stewart's complete control over everything that happens behind the centre circle is the Cats' greatest strength, and teams are taking it away. Just look at some of Stewart's numbers this year. Down in disposals, marks, uncontested possessions, and effective kicks. So this increased attention has a twofold effect. Not only is he unable to anchor the defense, he is also being denied the opportunity to be the architect of their attacking forays. This has led to a decrease in score involvements. Stewart had 21 in the opening 5 games. He's had just 17 from the past 8. This problem isn't going away. It is a strategy that has worked and left Geelong's defence at its most vulnerable point in decades. Now the Cats still lead the league in intercept possession differential at plus 3.93 per game. But that number was plus 9.8 after 5 games. Stewart's numbers mirror this. He had 54 in his first 5 matches and only 55 since. After the Power sent Jed McEntee to Stewart a few weeks back, Chris Scott said in his press conference that teams send players to Stewart every week and that he thought Tom won his position. But winning his position is not what made Tom Stewart a 5-time All-Australian. It's his control and influence over the defensive half of the ground that have historically made the Cats so hard to score against. That influence has been well and truly nullified, and if Scott and his coaching staff can't come up with a viable solution, then this season is in serious danger of slipping away. Scott mentioned after the Carlton game that he would not be passive or conservative in his approach to fixing the team's midfield issues. Is it time to put Stewart's magnet into the centre? It's a tough ask at age 31, but desperate times call for desperate measures. What is there to lose if Stewart isn't having the same defensive impact as he usually does? Now, I'm certainly not one to write the Cats off. They've been far too good for far too long and always managed to find a way. But geez, they got their work cut out for them. The coach always seems to be in complete control, but I think even he would be concerned at this point. He's going to need to get super creative. So let me know your thoughts. Can the Cats salvage their season? Put your name to it and make the call. Will Geelong bounce back into the top 4 and give themselves a look at it? Are they making up the numbers? Or will they miss the finals altogether? Leave a comment below. Thanks as always for watching AFL Insight. Your support is greatly appreciated. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe and share, And feel free to let me know if there's a topic you'd like me to cover. See you next time.